worried that the last 4 years are the best we can do, or if there's anyone who fears that the American dream is fading away, or if there's anyone who wonders whether better jobs and better paychecks are a thing of the past,
but Mitt Romney,
clear and unequivocal message.
He's about to become the next president of the United States. Not. This is the next president for another 4 years.
We tried their ideas. They didn't work. The economy didn't grow. Not as many jobs, and the deficit went up.
The closing arguments in the final hours. We're back with our panel. What about the closing arguments and what these two candidates are really running on?
Well, for Obama, it's very simple. He's saying, in fact, despite some of the statistics, that his policies have worked. They just need more time to work. And Romney's a bad guy. Romney is lying about what he represents himself at, that he's not the moderate he's portrayed himself at, that he's going to be a rubber stamp of very conservative congressional Republicans, and he'll take us back. That's a simple argument.
Well, just looking at the two closing arguments, I'd rather be making the one of the type of one that Romney is making than the one that President Obama is making. The president, however, is burdened by a record that on some very big issues, principally including the economy, he has basically not done what he said he would do. That is a huge problem for him. So necessarily there's a larger component of dumping on the other guy in his closing argument than there is in Romney's. Romney's talking about hope and change. That's what Obama was talking about 4 years ago. That's a more uplifting final argument to make. And it looks, just watching Romney, he looks happier and more comfortable with himself making it. The president seems a little weary, a little hoarse, and glad to have this over with. And I think, that's what Romney's doing and saying it may be a little bit more attractive. Doesn't mean he'll win, though.
Kirsten. Well, look, I think the line "America's going to come roaring back" is a very strong line, and it's very aspirational. And I think it's the kind of thing that people want to hear. We're not where we want to be, and he's going to give us something better. And so I do think Romney's doing a great job on his closing arguments. I think the president is being measured against himself 4 years ago, which is a hard thing to be measured against, and so he does have a record that he has to talk about, but I think at the same time he's doing a good job of getting people fired up, getting the base fired up, which is what he needs to do, and people like him still, even though people aren't happy with the direction of the country, they still like the president.
Although likability numbers seem to flip in recent days. In fact, Mitt Romney on some polls was outperforming President Obama in likability, which was shocking if you looked back a few weeks. There was no way that was going to happen, Steve.
It was, and I think that's been part of function of the fact that the president has been making the argument that he's been making. If you go back to April, which was in effect the beginning of the general election, there's a certain symmetry to the arguments that we're seeing today, where you've got Mitt Romney making sort of a big, optimistic argument, hopeful argument, and you've got the president basically saying, as Chris said, that guy's bad. It's not going to work. And if you look at it from that perspective, the president's basic question is, we've tried really hard and we'll do better next time. And Mitt Romney's argument is, I don't care how hard you've tried, you haven't produced results. And that's really, I think, the debate.
I think the revenge thing was a very unfortunate comment for Obama. And again, you have Obama saying, vote for revenge. These are the guys that have screwed you in the past. They're going to do it again. And then you have Romney saying, vote for love of country. Boy, that's a bad contrast from Obama's point of view. If I were President Obama, what would I have wished for at some point in this past week? You've got Governor Romney out there talking about he's the one that's going to be doing a great job of reaching out to the other party. Then you have the TV pictures of the president with Governor Christie in New Jersey post-hurricane, walking around with that governor, that Republican governor, that Romney backing Republican governor, praising him. That's pretty good stuff for him.